Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions, utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
Well, it's the final week of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show here for the 2022-2023 season, and we're finally in person. Cole McDaniel here with Vince McKee. Again, we were doing this virtually, separate locations the entire season. We decided to change it up here right before the Super Bowl and do one show at least in person. It's been a busy week for us calling games, plenty of basketball games for you.
Absolutely.
I just had 11 hockey games here this weekend for the Frozen Fish Fiasco in Detroit. I have basketball on Wednesday and Thursday, have volleyball, a doubleheader for basketball on Saturday. So 15 games in 7 days. You and I, like I said, have been swamped.
Yeah.
But this is good that we finally got to sit down, do this in person. Again, shout out to Climatech Inc. Last show of the season, and want to give them a shout out again for being the sponsor, of course, this year, and they've already re-upped for next year as well. And everybody who's tuned in and watched and listened really throughout this entire season, well, you gotten to really see something that has been interesting in the sense of we have been dead even almost the entire season when it's come to our picks, and only one game separates us. And then we had to go through in preparation. You did it, went through our college picks as our tiebreaker. And Vince, tell us what you found when you went through our college picks.
Painstaking research, by the way. As much as I love the sound of my own voice and Cole's, and Lord knows we know each other so well at this point. So this is what I have found. And first of all, thank you, Climatech. Anytime a sponsor signs up a year ahead of time is just ridiculously cool. So thank you. So guys, we had some banter, back and forth about what would we do if we ever tied, right?
Yeah.
And we never thought in a million years that it would be possible for us to tie on the NFL picks and then turn around and tie on the college picks. Well, folks, spent about 3 hours last, I think, Wednesday or Thursday last week, watching all of our shows. And I'm telling you what, I literally went back to week 1 of the NFL prediction show, and I watched every episode of just our college picks. Now, in the first 6 weeks, it was difficult because that's before you started putting who we picked on the screen. So I literally had to watch and listen to us, right? And by like week 7, I don't know if it was a miracle or what, but you started putting who we picked. So I didn't have to wait until we did it verbally. I just kind of fast forwarded, saw who we both picked, fast forwarded to the next game, saw who we both picked, because you had them stacked on the screen, right? So it made things 100 times easier.
I thought that started in week 1.
No, if it did, I didn't notice it until about week 7. So again, those are 3.5 hours of my life I will never get back. Never thought I'd get sick of our voices, but yeah, it was interesting. So what I found out was this: we tied. It's unbelievable. So we literally had the same record for college football this year. We're 1 apart for the NFLs, which I lead by 1. So this is the solution we came up with tonight. I think you guys are going to have fun with this. I might be 41. Cole's in his late 20s, but when it comes to football, we're little kids. I mean, we love this like we did when we were little boys, right?
Right.
Not much has changed. So my first thought was, I'll bring over the football helmets because I have my football helmets, and we would show who we picked that way. But then I was like, you know what? They do this thing with NBA lottery, and the commissioner pulls the stuff out of the envelope, and it always looks really cool. So here's the situation at hand. All right, here's exactly what is going on. Take notes. It's pretty serious stuff. I'm up by 1. There's no way I could lose. The tiebreaker being even like it is, that puts the tiebreaker, throws it out the window. So here's the only two things that could happen. If Cole picks the winner of this game and I pick different and pick the loser, we tie. And for the first time in Climate Tech history, through 3 seasons, we'd be co-champions. I can't say it without laughing. But obviously, if we pick the same, I win by default because I'm already up by a point. Now, not that I wouldn't trust Cole, and just for the record, I would trust this guy with my life. But we thought the smartest way to go about doing this, because I could say, okay, I'm going to pick Team A, and then he knows to pick Team B. And again, not that Cole would do that, but we just thought it'd be fun for the fans. So we each have our picks right here. I'm going to cover mine up because I just noticed you could see through the light.
Yeah, we already know.
So in the envelopes, and we're going to get to that in a bit. So basically, again, bottom line is this. If we pick the same tonight, and we still don't know, but if we pick the same tonight, I win. I might give a little cheer. I'm not going to lie. But if we pick different, then the Super Bowl is going to be a little bit more interesting than it already is. So all that being said, though, I did want to touch on his point very quickly. We started off on Podbean a couple years ago. It was a disaster. I'm not going to lie. He had to text me when he was live. I had to text him when I was live. Half the time, the crap didn't work. It was just so frustrating. So the jump to YouTube has been phenomenal. And again, thank you to Climate Tech Inc. It's been a fun year. And Cole, it's funny because I went back and watched all those episodes. A couple things I noticed was, one, I was actually kind of proud of myself for losing a little bit of weight because I noticed that those early weeks, like, wow, a bit of a jump. And two, just how professional you always look and sound. So for me to beat you possibly 3 years in a row when you're always looking good and sounding good, it's a mini miracle. But we will not know that for sure until a little bit here.
Yeah, the Vince McKee fortunes and the luck always pans out at some point. Again, I heard it this year where you're like, man, it's not happening like the last 2 years. Everything's going your way. And then it flipped right around Thanksgiving time.
Well, it did. Really more so around Christmas time. But here's the crazy thing. And again, we're not making light of some guy almost dying on the football field. But the outrageous part about this is, guys, that Buffalo-Cincinnati game now becomes gigantic.
Yeah.
Because we would possibly be, if Cincinnati would have won that game, which we saw in the playoffs, they very easily could have, we would be tied right now. And, I mean, all the marbles would be on the line, even more so than they are. So that one game, when you think about us being just one game different, and that was the only game that we picked different that wasn't decided, it's just wild to think. Because we had picked the Giants in Washington as well differently when they first played, and that game ended up in a tie.
Yes.
So there's a couple different ways this could have went. I always think back to when I had New England, and at the very least they should have went to overtime with the Raiders until the stupidest play call in the history of modern sports led to the Raiders winning on a freak. But again, I have beat him so many times on bizarre plays you've never seen again. I couldn't possibly complain because eventually it was going to come back and bite me.
Yeah, no, that absolutely happens. It's worked in your favor, and we'll see what happens here tonight. But touching on these two teams that are going to be playing in the Super Bowl here over the weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Eagles, we're familiar with some people here from Northeast Ohio.
Yes.
Of course, Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles. You have Jason Kelsey, his wife, of course, 38 weeks. So possibly could go into labor the day of the Super Bowl. Imagine the story if she has the baby there at the Super Bowl, because of course she's going to have doctors, she's going to have people there with her just in case. Of course, this is the Kelsey Bowl because then on the Chiefs side you have Travis Kelsey, and then not necessarily Northeast Ohio guys, but we're familiar with Andy Reid because of the ties to both Philadelphia and Kansas City.
Well, the head coach of Philadelphia went to school with Matthew Kostelnik, who, as you guys know from the site, is the head coach of Avon Lake football. So it's just wild. Like, the 6 degrees of high school football again with us comes into play. And my wife did go into labor when I was at the UFC covering a live UFC event. Got to see the Zickie born by about 6 minutes. So it could happen, but I don't think he's going to leave the Super Bowl.
No.
What do you do?
No, I don't think he's going to. I think for him, he's hoping it probably happens either well before, so he can just focus on the game, or it happens after the fact. If it happens in the middle of it, you better win the game.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, too. I don't know, but I can't speak for the guy, but he probably will tell the coaching staff and the management or whatever at the Super Bowl, do not tell me.
Right.
So once this game goes into, it begins kickoff, even warm-ups, do not tell me if she goes into labor. Don't want to know anything about it. Let me know when it's done. I had told Emily, my wife, when I was going to the USC to cover it, it was a big break for me at the time, really the biggest break of my career at that point. I said, do not call under any circumstance. I don't care if the house is on fire unless you're in labor. She called. She wanted labor, but yeah.
You know, with the Super Bowl, imagine if the Eagles win the Super Bowl and then right at the end as the confetti's falling, they pull a Lion King and the child at center field. It's very possible.
I've done that with both my children too. Like both times I circle life.
Hey,
Emily was not thrilled the other time. I still did it.
it could happen. That is for sure. So these two teams, their path getting there, of course, they're both the number one seeds. Not too often it feels like we see number one seeds going up against each other in the Super Bowl.
We both bet against it.
We both bet against it, and it ended up happening. The Chiefs in their journey to get there. They did it with Mahomes having a bit of a bum ankle. He was still able to move around enough, but he was certainly not 100%. Had to utilize his arm. And, of course, utilize Travis Kelce, his favorite weapon.
Sure.
And Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a guy who honestly performed quite well during that time as well, I would say. So they had some players step up when they needed them to step up. They got the job done. They beat a Bengals team that had their number the last couple of times that they played. So the Kansas City Chiefs, they're a hard team to bet against because in recent times – they've found their way to the Super Bowl. Of course, they beat the 49ers. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the third time they've been to the Super Bowl in the last 5 years? Last 4 years?
Correct. Last 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about it, too, is the COVID year when they lost to Tampa Bay, he had not a broken foot, Patrick Mahomes, but he had a busted-up foot. So it's eerily similar. I think the storyline, too, that you're going to see a lot is Andy Reid. Right. So obviously a lot of us who watched this show, me and Cole both, remember when he coached the Eagles very fondly. You know, led them to, I think it was like 4 straight NFC Championship games, led them to the Super Bowl. So you have a little bit of drama with the two brothers playing against each other, as we mentioned, the pregnant wife, the former coach against his old team. But the one thing that I believe that's going to help the Chiefs in this game is the fact that Andy Reid has been there 3 times now.
Yeah,
you know,
that's helpful.
Very much so. He's 1-2. He's also always very good off of a bye week. And you know, I'm big on experience, right? So I think, without giving away my pick yet, because I got a lot of nice stuff to say about the Eagles too, so I'm going to keep everyone in suspense for a second. But when I was doing the pluses and minuses, okay, Andy Reid has been there 3 times. He's not going to have those Super Bowl jitters that you would think a normal coach would. So he should be able to focus more. 2 weeks to plan for Jalen Hurts. I think they have the coach's advantage. I would hate to bet against the Italian, especially a local Northeast Ohio, with the Eagles there. But when it comes to the coaching matchup, I actually have that going to the Chiefs. Quarterback-wise, I have it going to the Eagles. And you think I'm going to be crazy for saying that, right? Because this is Mahomes' 3rd Super Bowl, and he's the best player in football, in my humble opinion. I love the guy. But you need to go with the quarterback who's 100% healthy. So you have the better coach with more of a dinged-up quarterback. You have a coach who might have some, rookie nerves going on, nervousness going on, but he has the healthier quarterback, we think. Jalen Hurts sat out 3 weeks, 3 of the final 4 weeks. Then he had that bye. So from all intents and purposes, from what I've done my research on, without actually sitting down with Jalen Hurts, it seems like he's very healthy. And that could be the difference maker, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah, and we will. And in general, it seems that way, but still touching on the Chiefs again, they have the offensive firepower. We know that they have that. If you're really allowing them to have even 13 seconds, as we know, in the end of the game, they can get down the field and they can score. Their defense, again, is very average, middle of the pack, but Chris Jones is a big factor. I like Nick Bolton, their young middle linebacker. Aside from that, they have some other players around that, again, when they need them to make plays, they can, but they're not a high-powered defense.
No, and they hung in there with Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, they can make plays when they need it. It's just I think they're about 16th in total defense in the league. I mean, that is smack dab in the middle of everybody. This just goes to show that, yes, defense helps you get to championships anymore, but I don't think defense wins championships anymore.
No, I agree completely.
In this era of football, you want to have a good defense. You at least need a middle-of-the-pack average defense. If you have a subpar defense in the 20s in efficiency, 30s, you're not making it there. But as long as you're right around that 14, 15, 16, 17 range, if your offense is good enough, you can still make it. It's just how football's changed over time.
Oh gosh, yeah. The days of the '85 Bears are gone, and the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, and really the '02 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when the defenses were that good, you could put up with a mediocre quarterback. '85 Bears had Jim McMahon.
Yeah,
Walter Payton didn't even score in that Super Bowl. Obviously, 2000, I believe it was Trent Dilfer and Tony Banks for the Ravens. '02 was, I think, Brad Johnson. Again, those days are done. If you look at the last, going back maybe 20 years of the Super Bowl, ironically enough, with the exception of Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles, you normally see an elite quarterback. Now, a lot of us have known that about Patrick Mahomes for many, many years, and this is a time, too, where I think he has a lot to prove maybe in his own mind, thinking back to that game against Tampa Bay when they should, I'm not going to say easily beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but they should have won that game. I remember both of us picked that. Shout out to our guy, Brandon Soderpenner, for actually picking the Buccaneers. I remember we had him on the show that year, that first year we did this. So it's interesting the way it's going to go with the Chiefs, but they have the offensive firepower when they're completely healthy. They have a lot to prove, again, without Tyreek Hill this year. I know they would love to do it without Tyreek Hill, so he can't go and say, okay, I was the missing piece. There's a lot of things there, and they're deep at running back, too. None of their running backs on the Chiefs are a stud. None of them are going to make the Pro Bowl if it still existed and all that nonsense. But they have enough talent. They've accumulated enough talent to be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, their running backs, they don't do a ton. CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, was really almost a one-hit wonder for 1 year. Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco have certainly surpassed him at this point. But those are not your workhorse backs. Pacheco's really explosive. I think he maybe has a good future here in the league. But I see him more of a third down back and a backup. I don't think he's the go-to guy. Now, if they bring in, a Bijan Robinson or a guy like that who's upcoming here in the next draft class, then maybe they might actually hand the ball off more because they might have a workhorse back. But they haven't had that. They haven't needed that.
Agreed.
The only question there is if they're not getting it done in the air, are they going to be able to run it well enough to pick up yards on the ground? It's just a matter of trying to stop them through the air, which most teams haven't been able to do.
And the Eagles, too, if the Eagles just play their game, here's the thing, the Chiefs have question marks. Yeah. But if those questions are answered and they're playing their best football, no one's going to touch them. But there's those question marks. Philadelphia doesn't, in my mind, doesn't have a ton of question marks where if they just come out, play their best game, they could beat anybody. With the Chiefs, that's the issue. But again, at full capacity, if they're blocking and he doesn't have to run for his life, I don't think anybody could touch him. So we'll see.
So as we turn to the Eagles, though, of course, their path had to bye and then had an easier NFC to go through. It was a whole lot easier than the AFC.
Yes.
And they were able to do it with ease. You look at the Eagles, and everybody talks about Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and those guys. The main thing is on that defense, their pass rush has been incredible this year. I mean, they doubled the amount of sacks in the season as a team that the Browns did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was impressive. They had a lot of guys in double digits. Hassan Reddick. We can go down the line. Josh Sweat was impressive. I mean, really, a lot of players on that defensive line got a lot of sacks. They pressured the quarterback, and they did it well. Really, in general, that defense has performed at a pretty high level. Their defense is better than the Chiefs' defense.
And they scheme like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, watch how many stunts they run. It's insane. Like the Eagles seem to have a defensive scheme for every offense they faced all season long. And you could say, okay, well, the Chiefs had to go against, Justin Herbert and on down the line, right?
Right.
High-powered offenses where maybe the Eagles didn't, but still, the Eagles still had to find a way to stop Saquon Barkley. They had to face the Cowboys twice. Washington was up and down, but you can make what you want, but you can only play the teams on your schedule. And regardless, the Eagles' defense was that good. That's why they're there. We were talking about the Chiefs being 15th or 16th or whatnot. I don't know if the Eagles with a 15th or 16th ranked defense would be here. That's one of the bigger differences.
On the offensive side, Miles Sanders has bounced back from the year previously. He had a much better year this year. Actually did a lot on the ground against the 49ers, scored 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown was a great addition for them. They have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I don't think they have a ton of depth I don't love the depth at wide receiver, but they have a couple guys that they can certainly get the ball to as long as they stay healthy. That's a good thing. Hurts is dangerous when he's moving with his legs. He's an okay passer in the pocket. He has a lot of similarities to Lamar Jackson in the way that he plays. Now, their build's different. The way they move's a little bit different. He's not as shifty, but he's stronger than Lamar Jackson. Same thing, though. He will miss some open throws, overthrow a guy, just be a little bit wide. And you said that he's healthier than Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to say that he might be slightly healthier because of the rest he had, but he's not fully healthy. He talked about the shoulder was still bothering him as he's been throwing. He's had a little bit of time off, but I noticed in that game against the 49ers, I still think it was bothering him because he missed a couple wide open targets, and I would say that the shoulder could be a bit of an issue. So that is something to watch out for. Again, I don't think either of these quarterbacks are at 100% health.
Sure.
Which nobody's really at 100% health when you get to the Super Bowl. But the 100% you consider beginning of the year is different than 100% at the end of the year. 100% at the end of the year might be 80, 90%. But both of these quarterbacks, a little banged up. It's just a matter of, will the throwing shoulder of Hurts be more of a factor, or will the ankle of Mahomes be the factor? And that's part of the question.
That's a great question, but at the same time, I mean, look what they just did against the San Francisco 49ers defense, which I felt was top 3 in the entire NFL.
Right.
So they've shown that they could do it against a really good defense, put up 31 points on them. Now, how badly was the spirit of the 49ers broken when they had to go to a 4th-string quarterback, right? So that could have some mental things to do with it too. We'll see. But yeah, to me, I feel like the Eagles snuck up on a lot of teams this year. We watched them, accumulate. I think it was at one point 10-0, and then they dropped one here and there. But this was a team that was undefeated for the first half of the season. They won pretty much every marquee game they were in, with the sole exception of Christmas Eve against the Cowboys. But again, they had their backup quarterback that night. So it's hard to pin them down. If you would have asked me even – let's go back to Thanksgiving. I would have said the Vikings are a fraud, the Giants are a fraud, the Eagles are a fraud.
Right.
I was more so into the 49ers at that time, and that was really – Jimmy G was only a few weeks out of being injured, but just they seem to have the total package.
Yeah, they do. Are you ready for our picks?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were already holding yours up to the light.
You already saw it?
So I already know what you picked. I think everybody out there might already know what you picked possibly. It was my gut feeling of what I thought you were going to end up doing.
Okay.
Vince, go ahead and reveal your pick.
This year in the Super Bowl, I have picked the Philadelphia Eagles' opponent, the Kansas City Chiefs. And my goodness, did I wish this was going to be a bigger sticker, but here it is. Going with the Chiefs.
Okay, so I assumed you would go with the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. So, time to reveal my pick. I might throw you for a little bit of a loop here. Wait, is that on the outside of the envelope?
You picked it. You're good.
Wait.
He's killing me, folks.
Wait. Oh, no. It's hard to see. There we go. Got that. Wait, what?
Who'd you pick, Cole? Wait a second.
Let's open this envelope. Let's find out.
It has to be.
There we go.
Be kidding me.
The Kansas City Chiefs. So here's the thing.
3-time champion.
Here's the thing. Vince, I felt like you were going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. So why would I not pick the Eagles here? Well,
question.
I thought about it. The reason why I went with the Chiefs here is I would rather be right than tie. If I had a chance to win, I'd go the other direction. But a tie doesn't mean too much to me here. I would rather just lose but be right about what I said. Why did I go with the Kansas City Chiefs? If you go back a couple weeks in our shows, start of the playoffs.
You said it.
What did I say?
Team that comes out of the AFC wins this.
Correct. Yeah, no matter who comes out of the AFC, I felt like was going to win it.
So
I can't really go away from that. I think that the Chiefs, they're coming out of the tougher AFC. As much as I think the Eagles certainly have a chance here, if they can generate pressure on Patrick Mahomes, that's going to be the key. But I just think Hurts, I don't trust him to the same level as much as I think Sirianni's a good head coach. Mahomes is better than Jalen Hurts, has the experience. Andy Reid has the experience over Sirianni. I just think everything looks to trend the direction of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're going to win. And like I said, I would rather be right on what I said a few weeks ago than just tie.
Well, a couple points there. One, Sirianni turned over the play calling to his offensive coordinator last year. Since he did that, the Eagles have been very, very good. Finished last year strong. Obviously, this year they're playing for the Super Bowl. A lot of Browns fans out there, we've discussed it, watch this show. That's something that I think Kevin Stefanski really needs to take a long, hard look at.
Yeah.
If the Eagles end up winning the Super Bowl, obviously there's the cause of that is that, right?
Yeah.
As far as, I try not to let friendship get in the way of things. But I thought to myself, I'm like, he's going to have to take the Eagles because he knows I'm going Chiefs. And if he wants to try to tie, he's going to have to pick the Eagles and then we tie, right? So all week long, then in the back of my mind, I'm like, I could play dirty and just take the Eagles because I was convinced you were taking Philadelphia. So I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, if I take Philadelphia, because I was pretty sure he was going to, then I win. I win by default because if we pick the same team, I win and we're good. But I was like, I thought about it. I said, this is not just my friend, but I want to be honest. And I had said it on the record, just like Cole did, 4 weeks ago, where it was AFC is going to win the Super Bowl if it's one of these 4 teams. And you went as far to say if Jacksonville makes it, they're going to win the Super Bowl. We were just so confident about the AFC this year. So I said, you know what? Even if he takes the Eagles, I'm gonna stick by my word and go with the AFC team. So it's cool that you honored your word. I honored my word. Yeah. Now we get these little stickers to play with. But at the end of the day, how wild is it that we have now gone through 4 weeks of the playoffs, and me and you won't have a single dramatic game. Every single game so far, I've been able to sit back, watch, and enjoy. Super Bowl will be no different. We got nothing to lose. I'm happy to win 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
I was teasing Cole. I said, if we would have tied at the end of this, I was actually going to get I swear to you, I was going to get a shirt made up that said Climate Tech NFL Prediction Show 2.5, as in, 2 full wins and a tie. But I don't have a sister to kiss. He doesn't have a sister to kiss. Either way, we don't want to know what ties are about because that's always the stupid analogy people use, like it's kissing your sister. Like, to me, it's one of the dumbest analogies I've ever heard in my life. But, tell me you've heard of that saying. God, if you haven't. It's one of the dumbest sayings in sports.
I have, but it is a really stupid saying.
I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. So, regardless, we had so much fun this year.
Yeah, we did.
But just to finish my point about the Chiefs, because I did pick them, and I will say why. So, to me, it came down to coaching. It really does. Because Andy Reid, again, in this situation, playing with an injured quarterback against the buzzsaw of teams they've had to beat to get here, I think the initial shock when Mahomes got hurt against Jacksonville and you saw them taper off a little bit, that's natural. Right? They had to go to Henny for a few possessions there. But I think they're in a position now where, okay, this is how we win without a quarterback who isn't 100%. They're coming off that brutal beatdown to Tampa Bay a few years ago, which was just that Super Bowl stunk. So, last year we had a great Super Bowl. I'm hoping we get 2 in a row because we had a few clunkers in a row too. So it's been nice. I like dynasties too, and that's the thing too. I would love to see Mahomes. I'm a big Tom Brady guy, but I would love to see Mahomes stack 2 or 3, maybe even 4, and then get that conversation going. I couldn't stand Big Ben. Big Ben of the Steelers has at least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. I know he was in at least 3, 1, 2. So I would just like to see him surpass him. Even though I like Eli Manning, I'd like to see Mahomes get at least 3 and just kind of surpass those guys as far as elite quarterbacks. But he came out of one of the tough, the Chiefs were in one of the toughest divisions in football. A lot of people make a big deal about how strong that NFC North was with, Dallas and Washington and the Giants, with 3 teams making the playoffs. But when you really go back and look at it, I don't know how good the Giants were. I really don't think the Commanders weren't.
Been a few seasons now.
Been a few, right? Emily calls them the Commodores, which just cracks me up. So, man, this was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Watch the Chiefs go out and win 52-0.
It was a competitive season. Yeah, it was a competitive season, and it was fun. And credit to you again. That's 3 in a row. And like I said, I'll be back and try to see what I can do in season 4. Again, this was the closest one we've ever had. The other ones were close, but it wasn't quite to the same level. I mean, I think the last one was like 3 or 4 games. I don't even remember.
It was close in the playoff. Like season 1 was 13. I remember I couldn't believe I'd be by that many.
Yeah.
Season 2, we went into the playoffs and you still had a chance.
Yeah.
So it was like 4.
Yeah, it was still close. So we gotten closer every single season here, and like I said, this one came right down to the wire. As we have 10 minutes left in this show, well, the playoffs, we didn't get to really talk about the Cleveland Browns. Of course, we're here in Northeast Ohio. We love to talk about the Cleveland Browns, and when this show comes back beginning of next season, we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns plenty come week 1.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we got the offseason coming up. Of course, everybody knows about our draft coverage. Of course, my prospect rankings, I'll start getting things published where we'll have the YouTube videos, those prospect ranking articles starting to come out in March. Of course, more of that goes up. Mock drafts come out in April, and then we have the draft. But there's a lot that's going to happen here during the offseason. You and I have talked a little bit about the Cleveland Browns here in the offseason, and here's something hypothetically I want to bring up. We've dropped this hint a few times. We've certainly, I know Vince posted an article. There was love. There was hate.
Plenty of hate.
Here's the thing. Vince and I are kind of on the same standpoint here with the Cleveland Browns. We know this with Watson and the talent you have on that team. Coming into the next year, you have all the talent in the world, but you got a lot of guys who are hitting their primes.
Right.
You have to win now, and you
Short
got to
window.
think about the next couple of years as your window to win now.
Yep.
The other thing you have to think about is even though the salary cap went up, now because you brought in Watson, because a couple guys are due for contracts and got some extensions here recently, you're looking at being over the cap. Now, I know there's those smart guys in the office that have the calculators and try to crunch all the numbers and everything, and people say that the salary cap is kind of fictitious. In a way, yes, but they still have to manipulate numbers enough to make it work. So it's a very
not so much
real
in
thing.
football, other than other sports. Like basketball, you can get away with it. Baseball, just forget it.
Yeah.
Football, you kind of do.
Yeah, they do have to actually pay attention to it a little bit here. So, because of my prediction also for the Super Bowl, something that I have been saying, and again, there are going to be a lot of people who don't necessarily love this. Now, it involves Myles Garrett, and I am not going to say that if the money's not there or if the compensation isn't there for Myles Garrett, they're not getting what they feel he's valued at, you don't make a deal.
Right.
You keep the guy.
Right.
Again, he's a great talent. You have to make sure somebody's giving you enough of a value for him. But there is a team out there that I think you need to reach out to and explore the opportunity and the possibility, a team that I think would be interested, and they are playing in the Super Bowl. If the Philadelphia Eagles, they lose against the Kansas City Chiefs, that opens up a window of opportunity for you to maybe pursue that with them. Because you know what they're thinking? They're thinking with A.J. Brown and Smith and Hurts coming into his own, and that defense, and they have some older guys on the defense.
One piece away.
They might be one piece away.
Right.
Now, they got a ton of sacks this season, but at the same time, if you can add another incredible pass rusher, like Josh Sweat's good. They've got other good pass rushers. But if they can add an elite pass rusher opposite of Hassan Reddick, that could take them to the next level in a weaker NFC
Very much
where
so.
they feel like it's
Yep.
their window, and if they lose this year in the Super Bowl, then they still want to capitalize on their window and get back next year. So I think they could possibly bite on Myles Garrett. Why could there be trade value with the Philadelphia Eagles more so there than any other team? They have 2 picks coming up in this upcoming first round of the NFL draft. They actually are currently sitting at number 10 because of the trade with the Saints last year, where the Saints traded up with the Eagles to get Chris Olave.
Right.
So you have pick number 10 that you could work with. And then also they'll have either pick 31 or 32 this year.
Yep.
So the Eagles could easily trade away one of those first round picks and still keep one themselves, and I think they would be willing to do so if they could get a guy like Myles Garrett. So my thinking would be this. If the Eagles, and it might not pan out fully if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, because their mindset might change a little bit.
Right.
But if they lose the Super Bowl, they're thinking, this is our window, we need to get back next year. You offer them Myles Garrett for the 10th pick this year that they got from the Saints trade, their first rounder next year, Josh Sweat, who is a good pass rusher,
Right.
and maybe you can get another 2 mid-round picks. in whether that's this year or next year, and again, maybe a third rounder, a fourth rounder, some things like that. I think that's fair on the value there. If you get, again, 2 first rounders, Sweat, and maybe 2 middle rounders, I think that could be something that would be interesting. And we'll touch on what I think, if that would happen, what they could do with it. But it's certainly something that would be interesting if they think about it.
Myles Garrett in that trade would make a ton of sense for both teams.
Yeah,
certainly. And to me, Myles Garrett is the kind of guy that needs to be on a defense that's already set. Like you said, already has run stoppers and a strong secondary, and everything else is good. Where all he has to do is worry about rushing the passer.
Right.
Because in Cleveland, I'm sorry, and here's the stone cold truth. That's all he does is rush the passer. He doesn't stop the run. He jumps off sides every single game. And this whole narrative of, well, he's always being held, that's true, but you're not getting the calls. What does it matter?
Well, he's always being held because he's also always being doubled because there's not other pass rushers around him so they can key on him.
Exactly.
So he gets gassed easily. He spends a lot of time on the sideline because, again, he's trying to stop the run. He's trying to beat these double teams.
Right.
If he's with a defensive line that has a Hassan Reddick and Hargraves and has some of those other guys, Fletcher Cox, I don't think you can double him all game.
Not Philadelphia.
He'd go to work there.
Right.
So I think that would be a perfect move for him. My thinking would be this, if they could do that. If I were in the front office, and let's say hypothetically that trade is made, I think there could be a ton of value that could come out of that pick for the Browns. With the 10th overall pick in that trade, you can either select at left tackle Peter Skoronski of Northwestern or Paris Johnson Jr. of Ohio State and replace Jed Wills, get your compensation, because there's going to be a team out there that will still want Jed Wills, maybe to put him at right tackle where he was at Alabama, where he was more successful. So you could upgrade at left tackle with the 10th pick. You'd have Josh Sweat, who's a good pass rusher. Again, in free agency, you could maybe go out and get a Deron Payne or a Draymond Jones or a defensive tackle like that would help shore up the middle. And then you could also, again, if you have a first rounder next year, then you're talking about, again, maybe next year's class. You can be looking at some talented wide receivers out of next year's class.
Right, and if I could stop you there real quick.
Yeah.
So that's the thing the Browns don't need is a skill player in offense when you already have David Bell.
Right.
So if you have Cooper at the 1, Peoples-Jones at the 2, and then you have the slot receiver being David Bell, you don't need to trade all the way up to that number 10 pick and then use it to pick a skill player. That's not where we're going with this. What he said is 100% accurate. You need to block for the quarterback. You finally have a quarterback who's unbelievably dynamic. Take those 6 games that you saw, throw them out the window. That was not Deshaun Watson. You're going to get the real deal coming up next season. All he needs is somebody that's going to block for him, right? So you take that, and the fact with what they need to do as well, and this goes all the way back to like 1999, the Browns are not good enough, and they've never been good enough since they've been back in the league to have any off-the-field distractions. Now, I already know what you're saying. You're saying, well, Myles Garrett's a good guy. What are you talking about? I'm not saying that he isn't. He seems like a pretty decent human being.
Yeah, he does.
But he's a constant distraction, whether it's a quote that goes to the papers and it's turned the wrong way, something about his DC, something about, he crashes his car, just stupid stuff, takes off his helmet and hits the quarterback, and then he said something racist, and then no one else heard it, right? So I'm not calling the guy a liar, but it just always seems to be something with him.
Yeah.
Just play the damn game and just worry about football. And again, the Browns they're not good enough to have those kind of distractions.
Right.
Use that number 10 pick if you could get it from Philadelphia on a good offensive lineman. You're deep at running back. Even with Kareem Hunt, you're still deep at running back. Utilize David Bell.
Yeah.
David Bell should be on the field for at least 50% of the snaps, if not more, especially if you're playing from behind. You have those pieces there. It's a matter of what did we see time and time again this year. Again, we couldn't stop the run. There was a guy, I'm sorry, I do not remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a running back for the Baltimore Ravens who hadn't played. Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Gus Edwards
hadn't played in a year or whatever. Comes out of nowhere with mothballs on, runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Browns. Year in, year out, they get gashed by the run. If Myles Garrett can't help you stop with that, you've had all these different DCs with him, all these different schemes with him. It's never been able to work with Myles Garrett here. So if you could go out and get something that makes sense, you need to do it. Break away from something that hasn't worked. You have to give them credit because they did that with Baker Mayfield. They said, okay, listen, we're going to get some negative PR here, but it's the right move. And if Deshaun Watson pays off, it's really going to look like the right move. So again, I couldn't agree with you more. There's many more reasons. I put in that article that's still out there going. It's still getting clicks every day. So obviously, it's something people are talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's interesting enough, something to think about. And of course, Miles has one of the biggest contracts on the team, so it would clear up that space you need. Because when you think about it, the secondary is set. As much as Grant Delpit is so up and down, and he started the year so bad. Into the year, he actually started to make some plays. I'll give him some credit, but I think they're going to stay on Grant Delpit for just a little bit longer.
Probably.
And if the offer is there with Myles Garrett, let's just put it that way. If the funds and the trade value is actually there and somebody offers enough and they take the deal, then you have the funds to be able to keep John Johnson III. I think your secondary is set with Ward and Newsome and Emerson and those guys. I think you're set. And you have to think about the linebackers. Anthony Walker's going to be back, and he looked great the first couple weeks.
If he can stay healthy, he's going to be real good.
JOK, again, he's a guy who's good. I'd maybe love to see them in the draft snag a linebacker.
I'm okay
maybe
with that.
in the second round. It would be nice to have another linebacker, second round, third round, somewhere along those lines. That would be nice. But I think if you make those moves that I was talking about there along the defensive front, I think that could be interesting. Maybe you could get in the draft, also in those middle rounds, you could get another edge rusher so that you can really have a rotation of Isaiah Thomas and maybe a rookie and Alex Wright. And then you can pair them with, I think Perion Winfrey has some flashes. If you can put him then with another good a run-stopping defensive tackle that can pass rush a little bit from the middle, I think Deron Payne's the perfect guy for that. And like I said, if they had a guy like Josh Sweat, I think that would fill and they'd be good enough. So defensive side, I think that's good. We touched on it. We're on the offensive side. Left tackle, I think they need a replacement there. I am going to say that I do think, even though Amari Cooper, DPJ, and David Bell should be the three, I think it would be nice to have a fourth guy who's a speed receiver that can stretch the field and has better hands than Schwartz.
Well,
Schwartz has the speed, can stretch the field, but he doesn't have the hands. There's only one guy I would look to that I think might be fitting. He wants out of Houston. Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, it's
Brandon
right
Cooks has the relationship with Deshaun Watson already. I think that could be a good guy where he's already getting right around the 30-year-old mark, and I think if Bell really steps it up, Brandon Cooks might actually come in as the fourth wide receiver on the team, but as a fourth wide receiver, he might put up massive numbers.
And you might get Hopkins from the Cardinals, too. Don't throw that out yet.
Yeah, and
that's a possible second or third round pick. You don't need
I prefer Brandon Cooks, though.
I know, but you don't even need to trade a one for Hopkins or Cooks.
Yeah,
Cooks you could probably for a 3, but it's all right there for him if it happens. There's 2 to tango. Both parties have to agree on it. The last point I'll make on Myles Garrett, when was the last football team you saw win the Super Bowl where their highest paid player was a defensive end? I'll wait.
Yeah. Can't think of it, honestly. No.
Not since the days of like Ray Lewis at middle linebacker for the Ravens and stuff like that. You just don't see it. And that's not to say you don't need a stud defensive end because it's good to have one, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry, that's not the position that's going to win you a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You need to stop in the interior of the line. There's so few good nose tackles anymore, but you need somebody up that middle to be a good run stopper. You need a strong secondary. I could care less how Jimmy Haslam spends his money.
Right.
But to me, if you're going to spend money on the defense, those positions, you're just better off. I mean, come on. I mean, Myles Garrett had 16 sacks this year. We won 8 games again. I don't even think we won that many. I think we won 7. So that's the thing, guys. Like, just 2 years in a row, and it's not getting you anything. He can, and here's the thing about Jadeveon Clowney. And I'll finish with this. He wasn't wrong, folks. He wasn't wrong. Go back and watch those games. Me and Cole said it for months. Yeah. The Browns had one focus. Joe Woods or whatever. They had one focus. Let's try to get Myles Garrett as many sacks as we can because it looks good.
Yeah.
And Clowney was only got enough stones to say something.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think the question is, yes, in Cleveland, is he may be the biggest star, one of the biggest stars? Yes, he absolutely is. But would you rather have one superstar, or would you rather have off of one superstar maybe 4 or 5 really good players? I'll take the 4 or 5 really good players any day over that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that they could do, freeing up some space financially. Because keep in mind, I'm pretty sure this upcoming year's last year of his contract.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is if things continue to go the way they do,
staying around.
he's going to walk in free agency.
Yep.
So get something off of him now while the value's there.
And not only that, but you wonder, we're not in those rooms. No one's in those rooms
Yeah.
when they interview these DCs, right? So you brought in Flores and Schwartz, and I forget the third guy's name, but you brought in these different guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is to say in the interview process that didn't come up? Jim Schwartz might have been the only guy who said, yeah, I'm okay if you trade Garrett.
Yeah.
The other two guys might have said, nope, if I'm going to come here and coach, he absolutely has to be here. I'm going to build my defense around him.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea. Me and Cole weren't in the room, but, Jim Schwartz might have been like, you know what? Yeah, trade him. This is what we should try to get.
Yeah.
I could use that. I could build with that. And the one good thing about Schwartz, I'll say this, with Myles Garrett or without Myles Garrett, he wants the biggest name players on the team to be accountable. These guys want to be held accountable. I think it could be a perfect fit. We'll see how it goes.
Agreed.
I love the potential of Walker and the Joker. I
Yeah.
do. I really do.
I do too. So we talked about a lot there. Again, if Myles Garrett is on the team next year, again, we're going to be cheering for him. I'm not going to be upset. I'll be happy to have him on the team, and hopefully he steps up and performs.
We don't hate the guy.
No,
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's been great. I just think sometimes the tough decisions have to be made, and I have personally made peace with, as much as I like him, and I'd hate to see him go, if you send him to a team in the NFC, I can deal with that.
Right.
Okay, if you get good things back, and I honestly think if you get quite a few good pieces back, something to build off of, I really think it could put you in position where in that window here, next 1, 2, 3 years, actually getting multiple good players off of it could honestly take you to another level of getting to the playoffs.
Look at the Pittsburgh
Yep.
Steelers, too.
Yeah.
Okay, I hate giving credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but even when Watts goes down, that defense doesn't fall apart.
No, they're not as good, but they don't fall apart.
They don't fall apart.
Right.
It's accumulation of a whole.
Yeah.
And coaching, if you have coaching and discipline and scheming and a game plan, you can get around these things.
Right.
I'll end where I began with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. When you have good coaching and you have a team mindset, you get around these things. Who else could tell me what team has won Super Bowls and appeared in Super Bowls when their best receiving threat is a tight end? Here's Travis Kelce. Here's the Chiefs. Here's scheming. That's what you do. You have David Bell on the roster. Use him.
Oh, yeah.
We were preaching his name last year before the draft. Lo and behold, they pick him. We were sitting together so happy when that happened, and then they barely threw it to him.
Yeah.
They would throw it to
Yeah.
him in crucial situations late in games when they were behind, and guess what he did? He caught the ball.
Yeah.
So now, I forget what article I posted a few weeks ago, but somebody had put in the comment section about David Bell. So obviously, people see it, we see it. The weapons are there, and sometimes you need to make a drastic move, if you want to call it that.
Funny enough, I think it was this week he had an interview with, I believe, Mary Kay Cabot, and was talking about, he was like, I'm not content with my rookie season. He said, I'm ready to go work. I want to be the best player out on the field next year. He has the right mentality. He has the ability. I think he runs some really good clean routes. Hey, Combine's coming up for this next year, but everybody gets so fooled by measurements and speed and things like that. And sometimes it's a matter of how smart are your routes,
Right.
How good are your hands. He really doesn't drop the football too much. Again, if they get him involved there out of the slot, the guy could honestly be a huge impact player. Will he have 1,000 yards receiving in a year? I don't know, because it might be a lot of short yardage stuff, but I trust him in short yardage.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, guys. We all talk about Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
Remove the year where they went 17-0 and lost in the Super Bowl with Randy Moss. That year was magical. It was a perfect storm. Okay.
Right.
Take that year out of the equation. Who were Tom Brady's best receivers every year he won the Super Bowl?
No, I mean,
Julian
Edelman,
Wes
Danny
Welker,
Amendola.
Danny Amendola.
Yeah.
What do those three guys have in common?
Slot receivers.
Slot receivers. And
Yeah.
then there you go. And that's the thing. Just saying.
And with the Chiefs, even though Travis Kelce is a tight end, a lot of times they use him kind of like a slot receiver.
Very much
at
so.
times.
Yeah.
It's a lot of underneath safety valve type
and
deal.
You saw a little bit of that with Njoku this year. A tiny bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. So again, maybe David Bell has a breakout year next year. We love talking Browns. Of course, there's going to be more of that coming in the offseason, a little taste of that here at the end of this show. Again, as we wrap it up, we want to thank everybody for watching and listening throughout this season. Don't forget, next couple of months, draft coverage coming up very shortly, so make sure to stay tuned here on the YouTube channel. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. Again, a lot coming up with that. And and our draft show. We have a blast over those first 2 nights doing the draft show. It's going to be a great time. Again, the plan, you, myself, Dom Clary, Brandon Soder, all supposed to be back together again for the show.
And
it's going to be great.
Night 2. I got to say one quick story. God knows I love to tell stories, so I'll end the season on a story. With Cole, the first year we did it on Podbean, which was 2020, when it was during the pandemic, and that was the only thing. That was the only form of sports for months on end was that draft, that we got to have that one night of fun. I remember I told, Cole said, he's like, so what do you do on night 2, Friday night? I'm like, it's up to you, but I wouldn't mind doing this again.
Yeah.
So we you're going to get us both nights no matter what. Last year we had Dahmer for night 2, but yeah, we take it dead serious. I think we already got 3 or 4 sponsors for it. So it's a lot of fun. If you like Cole and his videos and how knowledgeable he is, email me, Vince McKee, CoachVin14 at yahoo.com. Get a hold of Cole, and we'll make you part of our draft coverage. And as you saw last year, if you have a company with apparel and a shirt, he'll even wear the shirt on the show. So it will look better on him than me. So, regardless, though, as we take this home, and I'll make this super quick, this is a lot of fun. I was thinking about this yesterday. Forgot what I was doing. I was walking on the treadmill, and I was like, I really like doing the show with Cole, and I really think it's cool that we get paid to do it. And they've always said the best form of work is when you don't know you're working.
Right.
And they said if you enjoy what you do, you won't work a day in your life. So I said, you know what? It's really cool that we get paid to do this because we're sponsored. It's really cool that we get to talk NFL football. I would do it for free, quite frankly, because it's so much fun. But at the end of the day, to get to do it with one of my closest friends in the world, it's like a dream. So I want to thank you guys. I'm sure Cole agrees. Just everybody who's listened, even if you've only watched one episode or if you've watched all 22 or whatever it was, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
As Vince gets excited, slams his fists on the table and shakes the table, shakes the computer.
Sorry. As people everywhere are nauseous.
Appreciate the words here from the champ. Any last words about this season?
Oh, it was great. The parity was phenomenal. I mean, just you look around the league and it was so close all the way down to the end. So the NFL season was phenomenal. I think next year is going to even be better. For us personally, it's fun when the Browns are winning. And I'll give you guys one hint for next season. Cole's going to have his own show. So when you have this hit show get as big as it becomes, right? People, they want to spin off. So, shout out to Climate Tech, but shout out to Hinckley Roofing, man, because Hinckley Roofing stepped up big time, and they said, listen, we understand your NFL show is already booked, and you can't double sponsor a show, but we like when Cole talks about the Ohio State Buckeyes. Could we sponsor, a 2 to 3 minute segment? So kind of give that away for my boy here. He is going to be having his own. We haven't thought of a name for it yet. Maybe the Buckeye Beat or something cheesy. But Cole will be predicting the Buckeyes game every week next year, and I know you love that, so it's perfect.
That'll be fun. Get to talk some more about Ohio State, and I think for the Climate Tech Inc. NFL prediction show, we got to add in college football this year. Next year is supposedly going to be all NFL talk, so we're gonna have to figure out possibly another tiebreaker. So we'll see what happens when we get to next year. But again, gave Vince the opportunity to gloat. All he did was throw up the 3 fingers. Didn't really take advantage of that opportunity.
Well, what does it feel like to finish second 3 years in a row? Because in a 2-man league, it's like finishing in last.
Honestly, not too big of a problem here, honestly. First year probably was the one that annoyed me the most just because there was a big gap. It was close last year. This year, again, I had the choice, honestly, at the end of the year. Do I want to tie or would I rather just lose and be right on what I predicted? And like I said, I made the choice there. I was like, I'm sticking with the Chiefs. I'm sticking with what I said, that the team coming out of the AFC would win the whole thing. So I would rather be right and lose. So this is the most content I have ever been this year. And I am not one that likes to lose. Trust me, if you come to men's league soccer games, I take men's league soccer games very seriously. But
it's honorable. The reason, too, I didn't want to rub it in is because you run the show, man. Like, he knows how to do the books and the little turns of the wheels over here and stuff. And, he's good. So, I don't want to piss off the man.
Well, we said we wouldn't have too much to talk about here in this show, and this is going to be our longest show we had all season. But, again, we had a great time. It was good to be back in person together. And for everybody out there watching and listening, thanks again. Make sure to pay attention to the other shows. Like I said, hit the subscribe button. And make sure, come next September, you're tuning in to the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. once again.
Climatech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products.
We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water.
We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation.
Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction.
When you hire Climatech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.